Women entrepreneurs are driving change, but are they getting the support they need? With climate risks rising, women-led businesses must have access to the right tools, funding, and policies to scale and thrive. Today, we bring together global experts, innovators, and changemakers to explore solutions that empower women-led businesses to scale and thrive. Get ready to gain insights on funding opportunities, digital tools, and strategies to build a climate-resilient business. Welcome to the webinar.
Good day to everyone joining us today for the launch of Propelling Women Eco-Entrepreneurship into a Sustainable Future webinar series organized by the Asian Development Bank Southeast Asia Development Solutions, ADB SEADS. I am Ping Manondo, Head of Partnerships, Southeast Asia Corporate Decarbonization Exchange, a pioneering regional platform to exchange knowledge and to convene a community advancing private sector decarbonization. And I'm very thrilled to be your host and moderator today. This webinar series aims to celebrate Gender Month and International Women's Day by spotlighting the transformative role of women eco-entrepreneurs in driving sustainable development. The Business Solutions to Scale Up Sustainability webinar will introduce the big picture and overall importance of the potential transformative power of women-led eco-enterprises in climate actions, and then explore the various business solutions available to entrepreneurs from ADB SEADS partners and panelists, and especially how these solutions can best support women-led enterprises from marginalized communities. We acknowledge nearly 500 participants today. Thank you for being invested in this conversation, which we hope will provide you with insights on policies, financial instruments, and digital solutions that can help scale your ventures while contributing to global climate goals. We all have the privilege to hear from 6 amazing women leaders who are driving impact in their businesses. So first, To officially kickstart this webinar, please join me in welcoming Samantha Hung, Director, Gender Equality Division, Climate Change and Sustainable Development at the ADB. Samantha, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ping, and good day to all the distinguished speakers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, friends on the call. On behalf of ADB, I warmly welcome to this webinar. And as Ping mentioned, we're hosting this as part of our Gender Month program, together with the United Nations Environmental Program, or UNEP, and UN Women. So as we commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action and International Women's Day last Saturday, it's really fitting that we remind ourselves of the topic today and why it's important to support women-led eco-businesses and women entrepreneurs for sustainability and resilience. I think we all know that the effects of climate change intensify inequalities at various levels. And we also know that those that are most affected tend not to have a seat at the table to contribute to the important dialogues to address the root causes. Women's adaptive ability is limited by economic gaps and social norms. So this webinar series will explore approaches to advancing women-led eco-entrepreneurship and discuss business solutions for women entrepreneurs from marginalized communities. By fostering women's participation and leadership in green ventures, we can create a more inclusive and impactful approach to tackling climate challenges. Many of you are probably aware that ADB has long been committed to promoting gender equality and women's empowerment. And we're really proud to say that last year in 2024, all our projects across the many sectors that we work in our Southeast Asia portfolio included clear actions to boost gender equality. But we're not resting on our laurels, and through our new corporate results framework, which takes us from 2025 through to 2030, we are raising the bar on our gender equality ambition to deliver stronger gender equality results by further strengthening our approach to intentionally close gender gaps for women and girls. So in 2020, there was a report that was actually published by ADB, which estimated that a green recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic in Southeast Asia had the potential to create $172 billion worth of investment opportunities annually, as well as 30 million jobs by 2030. But at the same time, despite these very impressive figures, we know that women entrepreneurs continue to face barriers for a range of reasons, relating to formalization of their business, growth, profitability, finance, and digitalization, for example. And many of them are yet to adopt sustainability principles in their businesses. So ADB has been doing our bit to support our developing member countries to increase their capacity to design and implement gender-responsive climate policies. Some examples of these are the Nationally Determined Contribution Gender Action Plan, or NDC GAP, in the Philippines, as well as the National Action Plan on Gender and Climate Change, RAN GPI, in Indonesia. So these policies are very important because they highlight the importance of women entrepreneurs and pathways to support green businesses as part of the solution. We're also about to publish soon a research paper in Cambodia, which will inform enabling policies to advance women's entrepreneurs in this space. So the webinar series that we're kicking off today will span through this year as well as next year and aim to showcase practical and actionable insights that empower women-led eco-enterprises and help scale their businesses, addressing these barriers and contributing overall to resilience and growth. Today, we're really excited to hear a few diverse perspectives from our speakers on enabling policy and research, entrepreneurial ecosystem development, and innovative technology solutions. So without further ado, thank you very much for your attention. I wish everyone an engaging, insightful webinar and looking forward to hearing from the speakers. Back to you, Ping.
Thanks so much, Samantha. And we are also joined today by Ms. Marlene Nilsson, Deputy Regional Director for Asia and the Pacific, United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. Marlene, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ping. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
All right. Thank you very much. Distinguished panelists and esteemed guests and inspiring women entrepreneurs. It is my great pleasure to join Samantha in welcoming all of you to today's webinar, Business Solutions to Scale Up Sustainability, the first part of this 5-part series, Propelling Women Eco-Entrepreneurship into Sustainable Future. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to our esteemed panelists from the Asia Development Bank, the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia, the APEC Cybersecurity Fund, Microsoft, and Quest Ventures, as well as to all of you for joining us today, whether as entrepreneurs, policymakers, investors, or sustainability advocates. We at the United Nations Environment Programme, we know that solving the climate crisis demands bold, inclusive, and locally driven solutions. Women entrepreneurs are already leading the charge, developing clean energy technologies, pioneering circular economy models, and implementing nature-based solutions that drive sustainability and social impact. But despite their immense contribution, many women-led eco-enterprises still face persistent barriers, limited access to finance, markets, technology, and supportive policies. While global awareness of these challenges is growing, progress depends on action. We must build financial, digital, and policy ecosystems that truly support women entrepreneurs, unlocking their full potential to drive green innovation. This is why today's discussion is so crucial. We are here to explore solutions, real, actionable business strategies that can propel women-led eco-enterprises forward. Our panelists will share insights on how digital tools, smart technologies, clean energy solutions, and capacity building initiatives can break down existing barriers and create new opportunities. Through the Empower initiative, my organization, UNEP, in partnership with UN Women, has been working across Asia and the Pacific to mobilize finance and strengthen policy frameworks and equip women entrepreneurs with the tools and networks they need to succeed. We have already seen significant progress in financial institutions are tailoring green finance solutions for women-led businesses. Women entrepreneurs are gaining access to clean energy technologies that enhance business efficiency and climate resilience. And governments and policymakers are integrating gender-responsive approaches into climate strategies. But we know that more needs to be done, and collaboration is key. The expertise of financial institutions, impact investors, policymakers, and digital innovators will be instrumental in accelerating progress. Today, we have the opportunity to spark that change. Let's make this session not just a conversation, but a catalyst for action. Ask questions, share insights, and explore new collaborations. Your participation today is a step towards ensuring that women entrepreneurs are not just included in climate action, they are leading it. When women entrepreneurs thrive, economies grow, societies prosper, and the planet benefits. Imagine a world where women-led businesses are not just part of a green economy, they're driving it. That world starts here today with each of us. I thank you once again for being part of this important conversation, and I look forward to a dynamic, insightful discussion. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Marlene, for bringing your energy and your positivity. We can't wait to get on to the conversation, the panel discussion today. But just before that, I'd like to perhaps have a pulse of our participants in the room. If you're able to put into the chat where you are dialing in from, let us know. And, also later, there will be an opportunity for us to ask questions with our panelists. So we'll look forward to the engagement this afternoon. So Marlene and Sam, you will be joining me in the panel discussion that we will adjourn to right now. And to complete the panel discussion that we have, we will welcome as well Julia Marsan, who is the Head of Startups and Inclusion, Digital Innovation and Sustainable Economy Center, EDISC, at the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia, AREA. Hello, Julia.
Hello, Ping. I'm delighted to be here.
Wonderful. We also have Anthea Mulakala, Project Director of the APAC Cybersecurity Fund, the Asia Foundation. Hi, Anthea.
Hi, Ping. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Wonderful. We have Ms. April Ong Vanyo, the Head of Environmental, Social, and Governance, Quest Ventures. Hi, April.
Hi, Ping, and hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Looking forward to today's discussion.
Wonderful. And last but not least, we have Emma Gooley, who is the ASEAN Public Sector Lead at Microsoft. Emma?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so we're all complete here with Marlene and also Sam. Marlene, if you could perhaps come off mute and join us with your video as well. And not sure I see Sam, but I hope she will be in.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. I have the profound privilege of hosting a conversation with powerful women. In popular nomenclature, we are referred to as queens. And also in popular nomenclature, we say, or we hear them say, she's slaying it. She's killing it. All right. So let's kickstart this question from your perspective. I'd like to ask, what have been the biggest challenges and opportunities for women-led eco-enterprises in scaling their businesses while contributing to positive climate action? Perhaps I'll start with Sam very quickly.
For me, that's a very, I mean, it's a big question. There's lots of things, but maybe just to kick it off, I think one is the financing. I think climate financing is limited for a lot of, it's about accessing the range of financial services. So I think that is one area where there, you might have excellent ideas, but the ability to scale. I think there are some, I don't know them off the top of my head, but there's some very stark figures when you look at the amount of climate financing that is going into the hands of women. It's a very, very, very small percentage. So I'll kick off with that and look forward to other perspectives.
Thank you so much, Sam. I'll perhaps drive the conversation to April. Of course, Quest Ventures supports startups. And, as we know, the startups financing is always a key to helping them startups grow. How are you seeing challenges and opportunities around financing, as Samantha initially pointed to?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and of course, echo with what Samantha mentioned. There is a lot actually of funding out there now, especially with the rising trend, right, of I guess for climate action, climate funds across the region, but also across the world. Although, of course, like you mentioned, women may not have like a big chunk of that. I think there's really that challenge, not necessarily for eco-entrepreneurs, right? Or like green funds or climate funds, but generally for startups, there's definitely a big gap of accessing and actually unlocking that potential capital for growth. I think, beneath that or beyond that would also be really the right networks and connections to open those doors to these investors, right? Because I think that is the case. Like, I think some of these funds are looking for solutions out there, regardless of who are leading them. So I think it's building more linkages. I think that's the opportunity there, making sure like platforms like this one, right, gathering women eco-entrepreneurs, which I assume is the majority of our participants here, to be able to connect with, with Quest, with our peers, with other investors, and allow them to meet the right resources. I think that's, a question of, being intentional in that sense. On the other hand as well, I think as an opportunity, gender lens investing is also on the rise. So obviously that is sector agnostic. For us at Quest, actually, we do invest across the board in Asia, in our various funds. We're sector agnostic, but I think there is that unique opportunity for women entrepreneurs to see that trend as a way for you to really put yourself out there and get that funding, or get yourself in the room, right? Or have a seat on the table with these investors.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, April. Julia, do you echo some of April's observations and reflection as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I echo very much what has been said both by Samantha and April. So April is a VC. I mean, she knows very well the investment landscape. And we know that, unfortunately, only a very tiny fraction of VC goes to women-led businesses. So we still have a big problem. And this is a global issue. I mean, it's, of course, affecting very much Southeast Asia and Asia at large. But it is absolutely a global issue. But let me also bring in, perhaps, tech and innovation perspective. So when we talk about the green transformation, very much of it is about, green technologies, adopting them, but also inventing them. I mean, basically coming up with new solutions that can really propel this transformation. And unfortunately, we know that also in the tech and innovation space, women are underrepresented. We are 50% of the population, but unfortunately, we are far from seeing 50% of tech and innovation businesses led by women. Just before this event, I was checking some data. And once again, this is a global issue also very much affecting Asia. And it is an issue that is affecting both emerging markets and economies and developed one. For instance, if we look at the G20, data from some years ago, a couple of years ago, was telling us that only 7% of ICT patents in the G20 area were basically associated to women inventors and innovations. So we can see that, unfortunately, there's a long way to go. And once again, this is particularly important because of what both Samantha, Marlene, and April were saying. There are lots of investments out there, in the green tech space, in the green innovation space. If we really want the green transformation to accelerate, we cannot, leave behind 50% of the population. So it doesn't make any sense from, an SDG perspective and also from an economic growth perspective. So we need really more participation to have more innovation and accelerate the green transformation.
Thanks so much, Julia. You touched on a lot of statistics there, just 7% of ICT patents associated with women. And just very quickly before I hand the floor to Marlene, I wanted to ask Anthea and Emma to weigh in on this. So our Samantha, April, and Julia spotted on, opportunities to connect or the lack of opportunities to connect. Also the financial opportunities being invested in women-led ventures. You both operate within the technology space. And Julia just mentioned about just 7% and 50% of the population as well being left behind by opportunities in the tech space. How are you spotting opportunities and mainstreaming these opportunities so women can participate? Maybe Emma, I'll start with you, and then I'll lead into Anthea.
Yeah, sure. I guess so much of what I'm hearing, it resonates so much, and representing Microsoft in this discussion. For Microsoft, it started with a vision around, green and sustainability. And then for us, it's kind of then trickled down to how do we bridge the digital divide? So I feel like that really complements some of the discussion around accessing to financial resources and what that looks like. Well, that all kind of comes hand in hand if we can actually help enable and skill the women entrepreneurs. And I guess it comes not only just from a tech and an enablement perspective, but even just the financial acumen and the financial smarts for women, not just to be gifted grants or financial support, but how do they use those finances in a very kind of meaningful way. So I guess on behalf of many of the tech providers, a lot of the tools and resources and solutions that we are putting out there in the market, whether it's kind of mainstream from a private perspective or it's actually the philanthropy side, is very much around how do we help bridge that divide in tech? What does that actually look like in terms of AI solutions that helps the visionaries around sustainability, but also really helps empower those women to have access and have that equality, but also have the training, the development, the support ecosystem, the access to the mentors and so forth to really help that vision.
Thank you, Emma. Anthea?
Thanks, Ping. Yes, I really want to riff off what Emma was just saying, because we work with the Asia Foundation mostly in this space with micro, small, and medium enterprises across Asia Pacific region. And of course, the challenges that everyone have mentioned are very real, particularly in relation to finance and training and tech. But we also have to recognize that one very big challenge for women, particularly poorer women, is time. And many women juggle multiple roles. They run a business, but they're also trying to manage families and community responsibilities. And it really makes prioritization and choices very tough for them. Of course, we've talked a lot about it on the business side, tech training, secure digital infrastructure, finance. These are roadblocks. But today, the reality for women in business is that the digital economy is no longer optional. It's critical for business success. Yet what we see is that that so many micro, small, and medium enterprises in Asia are still offline. They're still operating in a cash-based economy or struggling with poor internet access, and that prevents them from accessing digital solutions. In the climate economy, these barriers get even higher. Green financing, as others have mentioned, and gender bias in investment decisions. And many of these women also are really struggling with the transition to digital commerce. And this limits their ability to integrate into supply chains or access carbon credit markets, or even scale some of the clean energy solutions that they may be interested in. On the opportunity side, however, digital tools are lowering the barriers to entry, and women entrepreneurs are finding help to sell their green products online, or to tap into alternative sources of financing, or to use AI or other internet solutions to advance their business. And also, as someone else mentioned, the green policy and the incentive structure in many countries in the region is also improving, hopefully with better opportunities and access for women.
Thanks so much, Anthea. And Marlene, hearing all these exchanges so far about opportunities, either in financing, making connections, and also in the tech space, could you share with us what are some of the things that UNEP has been doing to be able to respond to these opportunities, or perhaps transform these challenges into opportunities?
Thank you, Ping. And if I just may build off of what Anthea was just saying, that, but even if you have the policies, you also need to make sure that you have this institutional connection, and that, because you can have policies, but if there's no execution and if there are no resources behind those policies, they're sort of dead in the water, if you like. So there you need to have not only the policies, but then there also needs to be resources behind it, and also this institutional connection. What we've been trying to do is trying to get women more access to renewable energy solutions, both in the climate resilience and economic empowerment. And this goes with cross-regional partnerships and knowledge sharing mechanisms. That's super important. So it's not that they're out there on their own, but that they are connected to a broader network. And regional collaboration and knowledge sharing, that's another thing. So connection, collaboration, networks with policymaker practitioners and communities, where they might not have historically or naturally belonged before, but empower them to be in that space and to join those networks, and to giving them the tools to join these networks and partnerships so they can have that knowledge sharing. And someone else mentioned about data-driven decision-making, leveraging sex, age, diversity, disaggregated data. It allows for better targeted policies and projects, and then allowing for collaborative research and cross-country data sharing, and enhancing an understanding of vulnerabilities and the effectiveness of adaptation strategies. So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Marlene, for generously sharing of your perspective. And I do understand that Sam and Marlene, you're not originally part of the panel. We have you as the opening remarks speakers, but we do have some questions here that I would like to invite you to feel free to share your thoughts on, especially as part of the remit within ADB and UNEP as well. Thank you very much for being generously participative in this discussion. Let's proceed to asking, for example, Julia, at AREA, you do a lot of research, and based on your research so far, what are some of the most effective policy interventions that have supported women-led green businesses? And I said, Sam and Marlene, please do feel free to weigh in as well. Julia?
Yeah, thank you for asking me this question, and perhaps allow me to talk a little bit about a project we are working on with the ASEAN Secretariat. I've been involved recently in a study that is all about deep tech startup for sustainable development. And this is under the ASEAN Coordinating Committee for SME, which is actually an ASEAN body that is supervising SME policy, but also entrepreneurship policy, at ASEAN level, and in this case, ASEAN +3. So basically ASEAN plus China, Korea, and Japan. So together with other 3 experts, we just finalized a study on this issue, again, how to connect deep tech with basically SDG approaches. And by the way, the study will be launched in 2 days, so please keep an eye on this. I will be very, very happy to share it. And throughout the study, what did we do? we reviewed a lot of, again, national policies to support, once again, apologies for using this phrase over and over again, deep tech entrepreneurship. That was really the goal of the program, and how these relate to SDGs. And what we could observe is that there's still, in many ASEAN Plus 3 countries, let's say, a kind of comprehensive approach. So maybe, everybody's thinking about AI, but they are not linking, necessarily this strategy with other SDGs, including those one associated with the environment. Or maybe there's a lot of policies and initiatives targeting technology and environment, but very little about how to connect these, with more women inclusion. So maybe I don't have the perfect answer for your question, but definitely an observation that came to our mind is precisely that we also need to start thinking about a kind of SDG integrated approach. So when we develop policies to support entrepreneurship, innovation in this region of the world, it's maybe not enough to focus on just one SDG. We really need to look at how, the different sustainable development goals are interlinked and try to promote as much as possible a complementary approach. So this was definitely one of our messages. I'm kind of giving a spoiler alert since the report is not available yet, but will be launched very soon. So once again, we were suggesting to the policymakers, fantastic, you want to promote deep tech for sustainable development, but try to look at, at the SDG as an integrated framework. So when you look at the environment, please also look at women inclusion. When you look at artificial intelligence, also look at the repercussions on the green transformation.
Thanks so much, Julia. Deep tech, that's something that we will really be watching, this big space. Now, let's go to Anthea. How does digital transformation contribute to the growth of women-led eco-enterprises? We've alluded to this earlier a little bit, but more particularly into the decarbonization space where I am from, and into the energy transition.
Thanks, Ping. I think we know that digital transformation is really a game changer for women-led businesses, small ones in particular, in the energy transition space. It's helping them to scale energy solutions, improve efficiency, obviously to access finance. But importantly, it's not just about the technology. It's also about having the confidence to use it. AI, everything on the internet and all the digital platforms we're aware of, they're all great. But if small businesses don't get the right support, the right kind of training and the policies in place, these tools really won't reach the businesses that need them the most. And that's really where our focus has been. It's been on creating the right environment, providing training, appropriate learning methods, which is really important, and also shaping policies to help MSMEs actually benefit from the digital transformation. So through our programs, we've trained thousands, hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs, mostly women, both on and offline across Asia. For example, through one of our very large programs called Go Digital ASEAN, women have learned how to do digital marketing and also e-commerce skills to grow their businesses. And we also have dedicated modules specifically on green business, including modules on sustainability and carbon footprint tracking. And this is helping women entrepreneurs. And often these are very kind of tiny businesses, people selling fruits and vegetables or running a very simple to start online business. It helps them to understand the environmental impact as well as adopt greener business models. So for example, in Indonesia, we have encouraged women to switch from using plastics to using biodegradable wrapping if they're selling food, for example. So they'll, instead of what they used to use plastic, they will use banana leaf, for example. Also, women have been introduced to certain apps that help them track their carbon footprint and encourage more responsible practices. So things that are easy to do and give them some confidence in adopting these practices. Also in the Philippines, through one of our training sessions, women enterprises got to play what we call green bingo. And this was a way for them to see, hey, there's a lot that we might already be doing, which is actually sustainable, good for the environment, good for my business. And also, very importantly, what we also do through the training is educate them on what government policies and resources are available for them as green businesses, because it's surprising that so many small businesses aren't aware of the resources and the policies that are out there to support them. But I have to say that without cybersecurity, and this is a hat I wear right now at the Asia Foundation, all these digital gains can disappear overnight. And that's why, you know, through the Apex Cybersecurity Fund, we're working to integrate cybersecurity into digital training, making sure that these women entrepreneurs, as they go digital, they also stay protected. So the bottom line really around digital is that the tools are extremely powerful, but only if these women entrepreneurs can access them, trust them, and secure them.
Thanks so much, Anthea. Your role is really important. As we know, it is a very transformative space. The digital space is transformative. During the pandemic, we've seen a lot of reports of how many have transitioned from brick and mortar work to, you know, digital businesses. But as the space widens and deepens, so does the threat. So you have a very, very unique role, Anthea. So thank you so much for joining this conversation. I come to you, Emma, on the sustainable digital innovation. So how is Microsoft leveraging emerging technologies such as AI, cloud computing, IoT, to support sustainability and climate resilience efforts?
Yeah, sure. Great question, Ping. Look, I'd firstly say that the more large tech companies like Microsoft can bring attention to sustainability, that will have a ripple effect. So I think when Microsoft goes out to market, and they did this many years ago, saying we will be, you know, carbon neutral by 2030, we're leading from the front in terms of trying to create that demand, trying to get that onus, which hopefully then, as I mentioned, does have a bit of a trickle down effect. So within Microsoft, we kind of drink our own champagne or eat our own dog food, whichever way you want to look at it, in terms of it starts from within. And by it starting from within, being an employee, whereby we have carbon, water, zero waste mandates and requirements on us, it then helps us find solutions to women and to entrepreneurs, but also to the private sector as well, to solutions that we're talking to customers about. So I guess it isn't just about having a vision, it's how do you make that real? And so whether it's dashboards that we're creating, or we have programs like AI for Earth grants, which are all around how do we seed AI solutions that will advance sustainability, or we're talking to customers about cloud for sustainability. How do they track, measure, report out carbon footprints? So I guess at a very macro level, it's kind of trying to drive the awareness and drive the attention. Then through technical solutions and making it available for all, that very much kind of fundamentally helps with women, but also girls. We have a big focus around how do we start the next wave, the next generation of students coming through, so that they understand everything from the financial acumen we're talking about to that entrepreneurial spirit, to kind of a greener world out there that they can be building and coding solutions at such a young age. And so I guess our attitude is, how do we not just make AI and tech solutions for the entrepreneurs for now, but how do we actually build that capability for the entrepreneurs for the future? So look, I think whether you're talking IoT, and we're leading with solutions around how you can, track carbon footprint, or look at water levels, or look at sustainability, or look at kind of weather patterns, it's, trying to work across all sectors of both kind of private as well as governments around their policies, and really trying to emerge and seed in that so much of the enablement piece really does start with the technology and the infrastructure that underpins.
Thanks so much, Emma. So I see a lot of potential application for sustainability outcomes from these new technology that we are seeing emerge. And we just very recently had an AI global summit, right, where this space is being watched very, very closely. And as we know, right now, it could be a two-edged or two-faced coin. And so we are very happy that we have the vanguards of using this and harnessing this technology for good. Now, April, if I could come to you, but just before you, Sam and Marlene, do you have any thoughts so far on the discussions? We've touched bases, or we touched on, cybersecurity, also raising awareness, not just from women-led entrepreneurs, but even to young girls on how they can particularly be involved as early as they are in these opportunities, right? So feel free to weigh in, Sam and Marlene, if there's anything that you would like to also spotlight on. But for now, April, I'd like to perhaps bring the conversation closer to the businesses that we are seeing here, the entrepreneurs that we are seeing here joining us today. I'd like to ask you, what do investors look for in particular when funding women-led eco-enterprises?
Yeah, thanks, Ping. But I can't help but just tie in first to just the discussion earlier, so that perhaps it also gives context to my answer to that. Definitely, I think we are looking at two. I would say either some people will look at it as disadvantage or challenge, but we are talking about the intersection of eco-entrepreneurs, meaning those who are really addressing environmental issues, which is a challenge already. I think the rest of the panel have pointed that out, but then we're also talking about like women entrepreneurs. So, but I think, that could actually be a superpower. That's my personal take. If you look at it, I think Emma was just saying that, just now about how do we look at the next generation of entrepreneurs, right? Or how do we build capacity, create finance, or create funding opportunities for these types of solutions, right? And of course, these entrepreneurs that are addressing sustainability challenges, but also these are the women leaders or women entrepreneurs that are on the ground. And as everybody knows, right, is perhaps 50% of the consumers out there, we always say this, right? It's also women decision makers, and the market out there has already put in place the role of women, and that we have to make sure that we also understand and put out products and services that allow women to be engaged and to actually understand them as a consumer. So given that, right, I think that's one point to your question, Ping, in terms of how you're able to compete as a business. So again, we can talk on and on about sustainability and of course the product and the tech, the solution that you are pushing, but any of these things, we go back to the business question, is anyone willing to pay for it, right? It might be too basic to raise that, but at the end of the day, that's really something that you have to zero in on as an entrepreneur and figure out how your business model can also be sustained in the long run. I think going back to my point of, a challenge of a lot of eco or, green entrepreneurs is also, your competitive advantage, right? Sometimes you put out how, some of these solutions are actually more expensive than other options, for example. How are you able to make sure that your innovation, you have an edge and that there is the willingness or the conversion, right, of the consumer so that you can also be a leader in the market? Because again, as investors, that's what we're looking for, right? Your fit, your scalability, and how you're able to create a clear path, right, for that growth. And I guess that's also the role for investors, right, to see that potential and to drive that together with the entrepreneurs. But maybe also in terms of where we really look at the core of it, whether whatever industry it's in, we really want entrepreneurs to solve a big problem, because if there's a big problem, there are different areas and opportunities, right? And, for you to scale and for you to be able to create different solutions addressing that. And yeah, I mean, I think, apart from that, we always say at Quest, especially we are an early stage investor. So we come in sometimes the first institutional investor coming in. We look at the team, right? We really look at the team, the strength, the leadership, and of course the competence. Are you the right people, right? Or do you have the right network to ensure that you can drive your business forward? So I think there's a lot of that we, regardless of gender, let's say, right? Because I think if you are a women-led enterprise, it doesn't mean that you don't work with, other people, right? It doesn't matter. You also want to make sure that you have the right skill set. You can complement, right, the strengths of your team, and with that you have, higher chances of success.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So it's really also about learning how to pitch, learning how to perhaps strategize your business, and, not just solving sustainability or environmental challenges as an aside, but really putting that as a core of your business, April, is what I'm hearing from you. All right. So, fellow women leaders, I'm very happy to let you know that our Q&A box is abuzz with some questions. And so please allow me to read some of these questions. And Samantha, Marlene, Julia, Anthea, April, and Emma, please feel free to give your thoughts. First comes from Maria Ikeda. The availability of finance is a very important enabler, and coming up with new, fresh solutions in green tech space is vital too. But based on your experiences, how do you incentivize long-term mindedness? And how do we know that after the funds have dried up or there has been a change in leadership, that the projects will still continue? So this is looking into the continuity of the projects that we are invested in within our remit or based on our experiences. Anyone from our panel speakers could give it a shot?
Yeah, maybe I can have a go at it with what I just said earlier, right? In terms of you looking into your, your businesses should also have a long-term view. And at the end of the day, if and when you start dealing with VCs or with, other partners, investors, there will be that expectation, but also that partnership, right? I think I also want to point out that, I think for if I switch your question earlier, Ping, what do investors look for? But I think for entrepreneurs, the ones in the room, you should also ask yourself, what should you look for in the investors you bring into the, into the room or into partnership with you? So you want to have like strategic partners, strategic investors that will allow you to, create more opportunities. And again, long-term strategies become more realistic because you have these partners on board. So I think that's how you also need to be strategic, right? In the people that you work with and you deal with. And yes, at the end of the day, sometimes people come and people go. I get, operationally, especially once you scale, your organization will also become bigger. But I think as the leader, right, as the entrepreneur or the founders of your enterprise, that is a key, trait that you have to develop and also really keep at that. You're in it for the long run, right? Because at the end of the day, the investors, if they see you as a short-term type of gal, it might not even work out, right? So I think that's a good question, but also that's really something you have to instill, right, in your founding team, in yourself as well, and and the partners that you will deal with, that you're in it for the long term, even with the customers, right? The relationship you're building with your customers should be in the long term.
That's so true. Anyone else would like to weigh in? All right, if not, let's move on to the next question from Irfan Qureshi. So there is a project that is being worked on Working Women Group, particularly for rural areas in Madhya Pradesh, India. Please, if you have advice on any specific policy matrix that could be implemented to explore the socioeconomic development for young working women in rural areas, right? So it's the socioeconomic development for young women working in rural areas. Any experience?
Maybe I can try to say something, then I'm sure Anthea will have many other insights from her perspective. If I understand the question correctly, because you're asking about the policy matrix, let me go back to what I was trying to highlight before. So it's very much an issue of policy complementarities. I think you already had a very rich discussion in this panel, and you saw that the issue of education came up. So this is also the job for the Minister of Education, or a regional or state level Minister for Education. It's the job of the Minister of the Environment, Employment, Tech and Innovation, and so on and so forth. So when we want to address the issue of more participation of women, both in entrepreneurship and in innovation space, with the focus on the green transformation, we really need to remember that we need to work together across different policy domains. Otherwise, inevitably, if the strategy is just targeting one tiny little aspect, it can provide a partial solution, but it won't be something that is truly addressing the problem, from its roots. So again, I mean, this is maybe a message for the policymakers out there. It's really important, to develop this kind of horizontal collaboration and cooperation to make sure, first of all, that policies are not contradicting one another, and sometimes that definitely happens, but they're really working hands in hands to create an ecosystem that works from primary school to the venture capitalist throughout, the entire education, innovation, and entrepreneurship cycle.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Anthea, you're nodding enthusiastically. Any thoughts to share?
Yeah, I can answer that, and there's another question that I think is to me, so I can do them both in one go. Julia, what you said about the importance of the ecosystem, I think, is really critical for women businesses at any level. You can't just go and start a business if you don't understand the environment, if there isn't financing, if there isn't access to training, if there isn't policies that are there to support, nurture, understand the challenges that a lot of women entrepreneurs face. What we try to do, and I would say to directly answer Irfan, is in different states in India, we offer programs, and we call it Accelerate My Business is the main program that we have. That is, if women are interested in starting a business, and you don't have to be educated, for example, it doesn't require formal education. If you even just have an idea that you want to become an entrepreneur, there's a startup phase that kind of gives you the basics of what does it take to become an entrepreneur? What are you thinking? And helps you guide and develop that thinking, right? The last thing you want is women investing very little money that they have when they haven't got the basic understanding of what does a business look like. Ideas are great, but what you need is to have some kind of basic and fun foundational training to learn how to start your business. And then we have progressive stages. So how to start a business, how to grow a business, how to expand a business, and even into kind of cross-border. So we have programs in that area, but there are other organizations that have them as well. And then there's another question here about where we can access sources about green tech, clean business, and carbon footprint. So that program, we have green modules in our program that's called Go Digital ASEAN. And we have Go Digital ASEAN 1 and Go Digital ASEAN 2. And that's a program for MSME strengthening across the 10 ASEAN countries, and it's supported by google.org. We're just wrapping up the second phase of that. But the second phase, in sort of the second component that's around growing business, we have a lot of components on green business. And I would suggest that you go to Go Digital ASEAN has a website. And if you check that out, you can find a lot of our resources there. And all the resources are open source. So even though we've developed them specifically for the training that we've done, they do become publicly available eventually.
Thanks so much, Anthea. Emma, did you want to engage? I think there is a question here about big tech org like Microsoft educating underserved and marginalized female youth from Southeast Asia about sustainable entrepreneurship.
Yeah, look, I guess Microsoft does a lot in local countries. I personally lead the Asia Women at Microsoft group. So what I always kind of promote and push out there is easiest way to find out about what's going on in Microsoft in local areas is obviously to go to the local websites and LinkedIn and follow Microsoft on LinkedIn. And we actively promote in 2 weeks' time, in 4 weeks' time, in 6 weeks' time, here are some of the activities that we're doing. But a lot of it is locally led. And we use our D&I teams to really kind of partner with local in-country groups. I'm based out of Singapore. I do a lot with mums at work here in Singapore, which is around how do we get women skilled up around coding and the advancements of technology and get them back employable in the market. But whether it's working with ministries of education, which is a huge area of Microsoft's partnership, or it's working with local not-for-profits, for us, that's kind of our ecosystem or our mechanism to really get our messaging out. The other recommendation I would make is I always encourage other women to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn Learning and LinkedIn Navigator. There are amazing tools out there on top of kind of lots of free webinars and events that all the tech companies do host and provide, just around kind of skilling and understanding kind of what's going on from a tech landscape, what's going on from a sustainability perspective. And then I think through that network, you'll be able to kind of foster more kind of deeper digital native and entrepreneurial type forums. So that would be my recommendation.
Wonderful. All right. Well, where there is an ecosystem that is very healthy to support women, they can actually work from anywhere as long as they're connected, right? To Anthea's point that she alluded to earlier, this really gives them the power and is actually an equalizer of opportunities, I would say, when women are engaged in, the tech space, right? And of course, April, you have your eyes as well on, where the hot buttons are for investors in terms of the digital space. And so hopefully out of this conversation, more of our listeners will take advantage of the insights that they're getting to be able to start their own ventures and to make that, meaningful connections to get there and solve the climate crisis as they do business as well. All right, so let's come back to some of the questions that we have here for this afternoon's discussion. For Julia, let's talk about trends. What are some of the trends in digital and clean technologies that women entrepreneurs need to be aware of to remain competitive in the green economy?
Well, things are changing very, very fast. I think you mentioned just before, probably you were referring to the AI Action Summit. I was lucky enough, to participate in many of the conversation. And so basically one of the key messages were indeed that technology and, the current innovation space is really changing so fast that it's really, really important to be able to precisely, constantly monitor emerging trends. And let me go back, because you asked this question, to the issue of skills. So I really believe that a key skill for anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, or actually probably most of us who wants to succeed in a workplace, is really the one to learn how to learn. So we live in a time where there are a lot of changes. I mean, geopolitical changes, technological changes, and probably we are witnessing an acceleration of these changes. So anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur or, a business leader or entrepreneurial at work, we really need to, just be aware of the fact that the days, of just, learning at school are over. We need to constantly upgrade our skills and really, develop this mindset of constant learning. So if you're a woman out there participating in this webinar, it's very difficult to tell you, which single technology, which single trend you need to monitor, precisely because we live in a very, very complex world. But let me tell you that absolutely for you and your team, the important messages, you need to keep learning. You need to keep, upgrading and upskilling, because this is the only way to stay competitive, in your daily job.
Thanks so much, Julia. And I can say that the 500 or so participants are invested in their learning by tuning into this webinar. So congratulations to everyone for investing of your time in this conversation. Now, Anthea, I'd like to ask you, how can women entrepreneurs integrate digital tools to enhance operational efficiency and access new markets in the energy transition space?
That's a big question. They can do it. The short answer is yes. A few methods are e-commerce and digital marketing, of course. Getting online means women-led businesses can sell beyond their local markets and reach more customers. And you're seeing more and more small enterprises get engaged in cross-border trading, for example. And through our programs, we've learned we've been able to teach women entrepreneurs how to use digital platforms to grow their businesses, which boost sales and also expand their reach. Second, I would say digital finance and payment tools, which are really just exploding across Asia. Mobile banking and digital payments make transactions smoother, they reduce financial errors, and they improve cash flow. women entrepreneurs who adopted these tools have reported better financial management and easier access to funding. We know QR code payment is becoming more and more common, and it's just completely standard in markets, for example, in India. Also, IoT for smarter energy use. We've mentioned that before. There are a lot of apps that women can use to track and reduce their carbon footprint. And of course, cybersecurity. So digital transformation brings risks. As I said, I'm happy to go through some of those risks if people are interested, but that's why we're really helping MSMEs to protect their businesses from cyber threats, because the increase has been 500%, in that sector in Asia, in terms of cyber threat attacks aimed at small businesses. And, losing customer data or getting hacked can completely wipe out a business. So it's kind of a catch-22, I think, for a lot of businesses. Do you digitize more? But if you do digitize more, you're at risk of cyber hacks or cyber threats. And if someone experiences a cyber hack, they might pull back and feel nervous and move back to the cash economy. And for small businesses, there's so much at risk, right? So they're both so important, digitization along with cybersecurity. And really, it needn't not be hard. I mean, it's basic cyber hygiene, some basic tools that can be learned by small businesses will really protect them and make them more resilient.
Thanks so much, Andy.
Yes. Can I just repeat? I think this is a really crucial point. So the one about cybersecurity is really important for businesses, but also, for policymakers to understand, because, we talk about, AI, green technologies, how to really propel the transition and transformation. But, if businesses or users are not protected enough or are not aware of the risks and something very bad happens, as Antia just mentioned, this will slow down adoption. So it's really, really important, again, when we talk about ecosystem, also talk about, the safeguards, the rules, even the regulation to protect both small businesses and consumers. Because once again, otherwise, if something very bad happens, again, it will be a very, very important slowing factor. And therefore, we want to, achieve what we want to achieve. So I think this is very, very important also for policymakers to keep in mind.
Thanks so much, Julia. I wanted to also perhaps broaden what you already mentioned, the importance of a vertical alignment, right? Like from the ground, top, bottom, top, of how we should be able to safeguard this space so that it can be harnessed for good. But I wanted to ask, in any of your experiences within the spaces that you work in, how do you educate really the masses? Think about in the Philippines, for example, where there are a lot of what we call sari stores that are run by usually home-based mothers who want to be very entrepreneurial, but also want to be able to stay home, take care of the children. You mentioned, Anthea, about not having the time to do so many things. How within your organizations are you engaging in this level, in this grassroots level, to really drive the point of getting education, learning how to learn, using technology for good, and using technology even to contribute to positive climate action? How are you doing that step by step and building it strongly up?
Maybe I could start. This is kind of the nuts and bolts of what we do. And I would say it's really about taking the lessons or the things you want to teach. As I said, there's so many tools out there. And Emma said, mentioned a lot of the Microsoft tools. There's corporate partners have so many fantastic learning modules. The challenge is accessibility for these women that you just mentioned in these shops, right? It can be access to technology that they don't have. It can be language. It can be just understanding the terminology. So it's really important to work with, let's say, industry partners or cooperatives or MSME organizations that can work with you to provide that training, provide the orientation, and provide ongoing support, right? Like some things people do, it's amazing, right? They don't know about passwords, simple things like password protection. Or we found in Bangladesh, for example, that one computer is used by the whole family. or one mobile device. And that's including for the business. So you can see how at risk that is, right? So it's really having context-driven, learning. So you can take standard modules that are out there and often free, but you need to contextualize them, make them relevant to the challenges and the opportunities available to the people you want to train, and make the training accessible. And that might mean online training combined with in-person training. I know we want everything to move online, but there's still a lot of people in that economic space where that's not accessible 100% of the time.
Thanks for all the work that you are doing, Anthea. April, would you like to weigh in on perhaps what some of your organizations that you're funding are doing to be able to harness technology, at the same time support women-led enterprises? And if you have some examples of how this has been able to advance the energy transition, for example, please do share with us.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was going to say that, even as investors, right, it's also one of the, I would say, challenges, but also, that journey that you embark on, especially if you want to also dive into the sustainability space and making sure, right, your investments are also put in these innovations and these entrepreneurs. So maybe on that note, right, like we also, I think last year, yes, we released a report on, also highlighting some of our portfolio companies, and, to point out what you just said about, integrating, right, like sustainability or the mindset, and actually following through with what we want to see businesses, how the businesses should run, right? So I want to kind of like take a step back from, eco businesses or green businesses or, climate focused businesses, but any type of organization, right? So we have about 100 companies already that we have invested in early stage, and some of them are in different stages of their own journey or in their own businesses. So how do we also encourage and share resources and embark with them? This sustainability journey is something that we are working on. So giving access to networks for capacity building from for ESG, like some big companies, it's required, right? It's they have no way out of it. But like for startups, that's bottom of their list, if not even on their list, because they're focused on so many things to survive or to really grow and scale. But I think as an investor, as a stakeholder in these businesses, we kind of use this, right, as a platform, right, that our responsible investment goes, right, to these businesses, so that they can also practice these policies. I think earlier you pointed out on cybersecurity, etc., but maybe on a more simplified way of doing businesses is having basic governance structures, right? A lot of small businesses, they probably are mom and pop, or like partners, or like first time founders, etc. One way that we also support our founders in their journey, as they get more investors, they onboard other stakeholders, is to put in place, right, governance structures, so that they are able to put also some measures and metrics that they can be accountable to. And hopefully we can also include environmental stewardship in those different measures. So yeah, I think that's like at least one way that we can use our platform or our role as investors to also influence and share these principles to these new new businesses or new startups.
Thanks so much, April. I'm curious about Emma and Microsoft being able to perhaps engage with policymakers, because we've been talking about an alignment with policymakers on ensuring a healthy environment, ensuring that we bridge the digital divide and provide women with opportunities to harness businesses through the digital space. How does Microsoft engage with policy leaders across the ASEAN, across the region, to be able to invite more women to lead eco enterprises using digital technology?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I'm uber passionate about this one. I look after public sector for ASEAN Microsoft. So I do get the joys of working across many governments. So whether I'm talking about what they're doing from a D&I perspective or talking to them about their cloud first strategies and how they're harnessing technology, is definitely something that's very front of mind for myself personally. I guess policy making at a government level is quite tough, right? The reality of it is that our governments do tend to be in leadership or in reign for a period of time. And so usually there's political influence that kind of drives what's coming out from a policy perspective. But most governments are looking kind of longish term, but kind of very kind of quick wins, and tend to want to address the particular country's state of kind of economic stature and kind of looking at future investments and so forth. I guess my point of view would be Microsoft today tries to kind of help them build out more comprehensive policy. So rather than just looking at the now, it's like you need to set up the country for the future. And what that can look like is everything from digital infrastructure to making sure that they're considering kind of the reading capabilities of the students of the future, or looking at agri-tech is a huge one, and looking at the markets in terms of imports and exports. So I think, first and foremost is how do we make sure that the policies are not kind of siloed and really inclusive of security being front and center to protect kind of the citizens, and then really start to try and tap into entrepreneurship and digital natives are future revenue streams for the country. I think digital skilling is another big play for Microsoft, whereby I guess we've got the scale and the ability to go quite big. We invest in all of our markets, but even just most recently, we're putting data centers in Malaysia and Indonesia, and as a part of that, we're pledging X number of dollars into these markets in order to say employment, but also, again, like making sure that there is that digital acumen that's known in markets. And by amplifying that on such a large scale, that tends to influence a lot of the policies because you're making investments back in the country. But it was raised earlier, access to technology is still a very kind of leading discrepancy. Internet is a challenge. Digital tools are not accessible to everyone. And Anita was talking about it before in terms of how do you scale even updates around security, even Microsoft, we're seeing that kind of going, social media seems to have so much influence. How are we using TikTok to connect with people, to educate them around, security or cyber harm, which has never been kind of the core traditional way to access and land messaging. I guess also from Microsoft perspective, partnerships and collaborations are key. So where we can kind of be that intermediary to kind of broker and create programs that government agencies can roll out or non-for-profits can really accelerate that support women entrepreneurs, or kind of, again, build that digitech landscape for the future. I think that's where organizations like Microsoft can use the pulling power and the investments they're making in country to really kind of directly or indirectly influence the policymakers to ensure that they're very pro D&I. Ping, you're on mute.
There you go. We are again filled with many questions from our very engaged audience. Thank you so much for filling in your questions. Let's look at this one by one. And again, I invite anyone from our panel participants to weigh in on these questions. From Monica Milano first. This is directed to you, Emma. Does Microsoft have initiatives for women entrepreneurs in agricultural space? Perhaps including digital literacy?
Yeah, look, agri-tech is huge from a Microsoft perspective in terms of not just solutions, but investments and grants into local countries in order to kind of scale and upmarket what usually would have been seen as a very kind of traditional industry. What I would say is, if you're specifically interested in initiatives, there is one called Code Without Barriers, which is an ASEAN scoped program of Microsoft's, which will help around the digital literacy. I actually include the hyperlink. It's a sign up, a voluntary community-based group. It will provide you with skilling, but you can also give back to the program. And it's kind of a step-by-step program in terms of building capability, but kind of creating a bit of a founder's program and support ecosystem. So I'll send you some details.
Thanks very much.
I would like to,
Yes, go ahead, Julia.
I would like to jump in, as we did a study with together with FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, on agri-tech in Asia. And we analyzed a number of countries, both in Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia, 5 countries. And we had some interesting results. Unfortunately, the report is not published yet, and therefore I cannot share the link with you, but keep an eye also on this space for yet another report. Essentially, what we found, and unsurprisingly, and this is perhaps something related to what Antia was saying before, is that agri-tech can mean many different things, from very basic usage of digital technology for agriculture to something very sophisticated, like connected to food innovations in a biotech lab and so on and so forth. But some of the very basic solutions were something like really using a WhatsApp group to share weather forecast and access information on when to plant seeds. That could be very simple but very transformational. And we saw that in places like Cambodia and other less advanced countries in Southeast Asia. So once again, it's very important to remind all of us that when we talk about green tech, it can be extremely sophisticated, but it can also be very basic, and also very basic solution can have a tremendous impact. Second piece of information I would like to share out of this report is that what we observed is that the level of participation of women in the agri-tech space was not necessarily correlated to the level of development of countries. So we interviewed a lot of very motivated young women entrepreneurs in the agri-tech space in places like the Philippines and Cambodia, and the country where, on the contrary, women were struggling the most to access the agri-tech ecosystem was Korea. Once again, that was, a sample of limited countries in Asia, so it may not be representative, but it was very clear that it's not necessarily that wealthier countries, they have solved the women issue. So it's something that is still very problematic in many countries around the world, irrespectively of GDP per capita. And this is something that we clearly need to address together, because everybody has a role. The private sector, the policymakers, international organizations like mine and others that are, ADB, UNEP, and many others that are with us today, foundations like the Asia Foundations or VCs.
Thank you so much, Julia. We have a question from Michael Johan Ojas. With online platforms selling cheap products all over the world, how can MSMEs, women entrepreneurs, differentiate their products to be able to compete? And do we have specific case studies to share? Anyone? How can we differentiate the product offering when there are others that are selling very cheaply online on e-commerce platforms?
I can give it a go, although I'm not an entrepreneur, so I'm very curious to hear from other people, from this panel. I think it really depends on the business, you are operating in as a woman entrepreneur, because, depending on the business you're operating, who your competitors are, and, you should know what to do with respect to that. But typically, for instance, if you are in a landlocked country, your operations can become more expensive because you don't have access to ports. So typically, what a person like me or an analyst would recommend to women-led businesses, in countries where operations are more expensive, you need to concentrate, on a kind of higher-end type of products or services, because by doing that, you can justify the additional cost, and therefore you can still remain competitive in the market. In other cases, even being eco-friendly can be a comparative advantage, or it can be a selling point. So there is a fantastic entrepreneur, a fantastic business I love from Indonesia, and this entrepreneur is working primarily, if not only, with women artisans in rural areas to kind of promote traditional batik techniques in a completely and 100% eco-friendly way. So they're only using plant-based colors, to basically develop a pink, blue, or green batik. And they constantly innovate because basically they test and they experiment with the, new plant-based solution to develop different hues for their textiles. This is expensive, which is why they are in some cases trying to target a higher end of the market, precisely because this business model cannot compete, with very cheap goods developed in certain regions of the world. So that's how they try to find and develop their own niche. And I really like to mention this example because it's not operating, in the AI or, deep tech space. It's really about textile and clothing, but they're doing it in a very innovative way that is very much eco-friendly. As I was saying, it's really part of their trademark. And this is how they are differentiating their products from competitors around the world.
Thanks so much. And this is why we're also having this conversation to create an enabling ecosystem for sustainable entrepreneurs and especially women eco-entrepreneurs to thrive. So I hope that that did answer. And I just want to read a comment. Oh, April, you were raising your hand.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just wanted to maybe take a shot back to the audience, right? Like, I don't know if I'm overtaking you, Ping, but maybe we can invite the entrepreneurs to just put it on the chat. What are their enterprises, who they are, get themselves, this is the time for you to plug, right? I mean, I'm not asking for a pitch deck or anything, but I would love to see, write down your name. What is your enterprise? What do you do? Maybe you can share the link, and this is how you build a network, right? And we discover each other through these things. So I think perhaps the answer to that question could be one of the people, or a few of the people in the room as well.
You're right about that, April. We have Charmaine Kuonheng, who's taking the platform right now to actually voice a question about Nature Loop. So may I just read that for you, Charmaine? They upcycle coconut waste into green building materials, and they want to increase the gender impact of their work, particularly at the farmer level. Very important. There's a lack of environmental and social impact research data, especially gender disaggregated data. So what are the opportunities to partner with multilateral agencies to jointly do feasibility studies to create new industries and look at gender impact? Anyone can take this on. I'm a bit shy to arrow Marlene because but
no, I can give it a shot. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities. I can just first talk about UNEP, perhaps, my organization. There are several opportunities for partnerships to enhance gender impact and conduct feasibility studies. We support research on sustainable value chains, circular economy models, and gender sensitivity environmental policies. And there we have a process called the GEO process, but it's a kind of a lengthy one. So if she's looking for something quicker, it would probably be through one of our feasibility studies that we can do. We do have a gender and environment action plan that also promotes gender responsive environmental initiatives. We work on circular economy, particularly through our hosted international resource panel. This is where you can leverage to conduct feasibility studies and create sustainable markets for upcycled coconut waste with gender inclusive approach. I'm just trying to think. We collaborate obviously with other UN entities like UNDP, FAO, and UN Women. And as I mentioned in my remarks earlier, there is the Empower program that is also an opportunity, and also through the Global Environment Facility and Green Climate Fund. But those are longer term. It's not something that you can do like this. But all of these partnerships could lead to joint feasibility studies on economy and environmental and gender impacts, possibly within existing projects. That's something to explore. And then our regional office we stand I'm the Deputy Regional Director. We stand open to discuss and see what we could do around feasibility studies and perhaps through Empower. We also have something called the UNEP Finance Initiative and a Partnership for Action on Green Economy page. So there are two different ones. Finance Initiative looks at banks and they could look at investment of potential for upcycle coconut waste in industries while integrating gender inclusive. So yeah, engage with us. There's also FAO, UNDP, and UN Women to look at where there could be feasibility studies and where we could scale up, and also through Empower. But yes, there are opportunities, and I would seize these opportunities now while still gender is on the agenda, because as we can see in other parts of the world, the issue of gender and women equality is kind of eroding and it's being chipped away. So I think if Asia could lead on this and really show that it's possible and that it is important, that would be fantastic, because I do think Asia has an opportunity to just step into this space now where others are stepping out.
Thanks so much, Marlene, and Asia will rise up to that challenge. So also those who are here, who are entrepreneurs themselves, rise up to the challenge that April Ong Vanyo just gave to us. If you have particular questions about your own business, put them on the chat. There was also a question about this in similar vein for waste management. And so you probably have heard just now from Marlene about the ways to engage with UNEP. Now, here's another question from Michaela Rosianga. How can work-at-home women, most especially moms, compete with others who have more ways of discovering techniques to make their business known, right? I guess if I could take a stab at it, Michaela, please allow me. One of our speakers did say, learn how to learn continuously, stay competitive. This is the only way for us to be able to stay competitive in this space and to be able to seize the opportunities that this space offers us. But anyone could give a quick wrap or a quick answer to that as we come to our, I guess, wrap questions with my eye on the time. Anyone from our panelists would like to answer that question? It's a very important question to support work-at-home women, especially mothers.
I can take a quick, oh, sorry, go ahead, Emma.
No, please go for it. No, go for it.
So very, the short answer is with digitization, if someone has access to even a phone, a smartphone, you can access online training, and that makes, the whole gig economy has really changed opportunities and enabled opportunities for women who work from home or are at home and are not able to travel out. So there, a lot of our training is online. Like the reason we created something called the Future Skills Alliance was to be able to access all this amazing training that is available out there from lots of sources that is free. We use a lot of Microsoft modules actually, and make them available online so that women who aren't able to go to a training center can access them, right? So again, it's really a question of accessibility. And I think a lot of us that are working at the, the so-called grassroots really have to think about the economic potential of women that are working from home. And you can run a business from home. So many micro entrepreneurs are women that run their businesses from home. But having just a little bit of training and access to technology and, AI, anything, which is increasingly more accessible, can just really lift your business.
Thanks, Anthea. Emma, your thoughts?
Look, I absolutely love that. And I guess I would just echo that I feel like whether you're a mum at home or working full time, there is no disadvantage in terms of starting up a small business or accelerating that small business. I think the biggest challenge is accessibility. So I feel like if you can overcome that piece, then my advice is, and we were talking about it before, and I know this feels a little bit like sales 101, but it's all about value differentiation. I feel like there has been a huge social pivot where now there's so many digital signals that it's so important to cut through, but the social norm that's changed is people love that personalization. They love the story, and there's so much of a pivot around supporting local. So if your differentiation is your backstory to how the business came, your vision for the future, whether it was sustainable products or, you know, whatever makes your particular entrepreneurial business cut through the noise. That's kind of where I would be focusing anyone to kind of draw the attention to, and using any kind of social access to enable that will definitely lead the path.
Wonderful. All right. So we have just a few minutes before we close this fascinating conversation, very lively. It really is different when there are powerful women in the room sharing of their experience, expertise, and their knowledge. So thank you so very much, Samantha, Marlene, Julia, April, Emma, and Anthea. I think we come down to just the last two questions out of this very inspiring conversation. If you had one piece of advice for women eco-entrepreneurs looking to scale their businesses using clean energy technologies, what would it be? Anyone can take that question on? Maybe if you don't mind, I'll start with April.
Yeah, sure. I mean, perhaps if I could just adjust that or expand that, not just for green energy, but really for entrepreneurs, right? I think I mentioned this earlier on, you know, what we look for, or of course, the scalability of a business and viability of a business that's starting out. But I want to look into how, or I would like to you know, it's very basic, but then, you know, in terms of finding the right people, I mentioned this earlier. I think that's really crucial. I mean, I know we were talking about, you know, technology, much about, you know, the funding and regulatory policies and all these challenges, but, you know, focusing on you as an entrepreneur, I think for you to have the right people around you is very crucial, because being an entrepreneur is no joke. You know, having conversations with our founders, there's always, you know, that level of you know, resilience that you need to cultivate. So I think having the right people, both on the, you know, the team side in terms of like technically, you know, being in, you know, having the right people in the room to drive your business forward, but also in the back end, right? Like, you know, the mentors, you know, the networks that everyone was pointing out earlier, finding the people that are doing similar things or having the same vision, and having, you know, becoming champions together for sustainability. So surrounding yourself with that allows you to, you know, keep going and you know, even share your problems, right? And share solutions or share answers. So I think that's really crucial for any entrepreneur to really have a good foundation of people, good people around you.
Thanks so much, April. Marlene, please.
Can I build on what April was saying? Because I think that's absolutely right. We're stronger when we're together. Partnerships are key, and it's across the sectors. You know, the success in green technology and renewable energy and this whole field, it requires collaboration, not just amongst the entrepreneurs, but with policymakers, investors, scientists, to step out of your comfort zone and build those partnerships and lean into those networks. Be part of a sisterhood, stick together with other sisters. That's also key, I think, in this. So engage with the industry networks, government programs, sustainable focused funds, and scale up your impact in navigating regulatory landscapes, because it can be tricky. So even if you're not an expert on the policies, get to know the ones who do. So that would be my advice.
Thank you for that inspiration, Marlene. I'll go around and call on Emma, please.
I feel like everything has been said so well. I would have gone network and connections. I would have said the agility piece, being able to kind of read the market, read your customers, be incredibly connected to your target market means that you can read all of those signals and ensure that your business is agile and fruitful, and then find yourself an amazing coach or mentor.
That's amazing. Cultural mentor. Thank you. Anthea.
Thanks. Yes, I agree with everything that's been said. Additionally, I would say leverage digital transformation and invest in and learn digital tools that improve your business, but make cybersecurity a priority from day one.
Thank you, Anthea. Julia, before I conclude with Samantha.
So I need to try to find something else to add to the conversation, because anything that has been said before me, I completely agree with it. Partnerships are crucial, but perhaps let me build on something that Emma just mentioned. So we also need to make sure collectively to kind of educate consumers, or making sure that consumers are changing mindset. Ultimately, consumers are the one driving the demand, and there's a lot of demand-driven innovation that can be developed. So if suddenly everybody's recognizing the importance of green products, obviously there would be more companies staying on the market producing this kind of products. So this is something extremely important that we need to do together to basically convince anyone to choose green and choose women.
Wonderfully said. Choose green and choose women. And Samantha, if you could please invite our attendees to continuously engage with you as well.
Yeah, so I think it's all been said, but maybe just a couple of thoughts. So first of all, I'd like to make a plug for a platform we have called the Women's Finance Exchange. It's www.wfx.adb.org. We can put that in the chat. And that's an online community really for this purpose, to bridge women-led businesses with the finance and partners to really get the finance and adopt new technology in the green space. So just to say that, I think I agree with everything that's said. So maybe what I'd like to add is I think a responsibility on the side of development partners and tech companies or whatever. We also need to innovate and meet women-led businesses where they have gaps. And I think one way of doing that is by giving them visibility. So one way that we do that, and this is actually borrowed from another region that we work in Central Asia, is we have annual awards for gender and climate businesses, and that's in Central Asia. So that's gained a lot of traction by governments and basically wider private sector in the lot. I think another one is, I think it was you, Julia, was saying that we need to provide sometimes very simple solutions to where women businesses are. And just an example of where we're doing that is we know very much that extreme heat is a big issue for a lot of women in the region, particularly women in the agriculture space or in informal workers. So we have a technical assistance where we're trying to maximize technology solutions and bringing it to them. One way we're doing that is by using satellite technology to give women early warning about what to do with heat through phone SMS. But we also have a recent innovation challenge to try to help save Kampot pepper in Cambodia, the world famous pepper. Women farmers have been really negatively affected by heat in terms of pepper production. So a recent innovative challenge we have awarded a solution to use solar technology for cooling and irrigation. So that's just some examples of where we can sort of be proactive to meet women businesses with the right technology that they may not have. So I'll stop there. Thank you, everybody. It's been really interesting.
Thank you so much. I guess with that, we are going to wrap up our webinar today. Thank you once again to our panel speakers. Of course, we have Jason raising his hand right now to kind of like perhaps have a few parting shots before we go. But this has been a very interesting, engaging, fantastic, insightful conversation where we were able to kind of like wrap up on or spotlight on policies not being siloed, policies being integrated. We've focused on raising awareness, educating, continuous learning, and just bringing women to the spotlight as they are supported to pursue entrepreneurship that not only enriches women, enriches their lives, but at the same time makes a positive impact to the environment. So if without anything else, we thank you all for joining. Michelle has a shout out. The recording will be available next week through the ADB SEADS website. So please do check that link. Once again, please allow me to thank Julia Marsan at ARIA, Anthea Mulakala at the Asia Society, April Omvanyo at Quest Ventures, Emma Gully at Microsoft, Marlon Nielsen at UNEP, and of course, Samantha Hung at ADB. This has been Ping Manongdo, your host and moderator and fellow women eco-champion with the Southeast Asia Decarbonization Exchange. Have a lovely afternoon, and let's get the conversation, and let's get into action as well. Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.